Americans consume more antidepressants than almost any nation on Earth. They also consistently rank themselves among the happiest people alive. Those two facts should not be able to exist in the same country, but they do, and the reason why tells you something extraordinary about the human brain, and something uncomfortable about the story America tells itself. This isn't hypocrisy. This is science. Chapter 1. The Wired Brain. Your brain has a built-in bias, a factory setting, a default mode that researchers have spent decades trying to explain and have only recently begun to understand. It is called optimism bias, and Americans have it in a way that is almost without parallel anywhere on Earth. Neuroscientist Tali Sharot at University College London spent years scanning human brains as people thought about their futures. What she found changed everything. When people imagined good things happening, a promotion, a relationship, a success, their brains lit up intensely in the regions associated with reward and motivation. When they imagined bad things, failure, illness, loss, those same regions underreacted. The brain was physically filtering out negative futures, not ignoring them, filtering them, editing the future before it arrived to make sure the positive version got more processing power than the negative one. This is not delusion. This is biology, and in most humans, it is a gentle tilt toward the positive. In Americans, research suggests it is something closer to a full lean. Chapter 2. Who came to America, but why? Why would one country's population show this bias more intensely than others? The answer starts before America was a country at all. Think about who came to America, not who was brought against their will. That is a different and darker story. Think about who chose to come. Across 2 centuries of voluntary immigration, the people who left everything, their families, their language, their home, their certainty, and crossed an ocean or a continent toward a place they had never seen, were, by definition, not the cautious ones. They were not the people who weighed the risks carefully and decided to stay. They were the people who looked at an uncertain future and felt pulled toward it rather than frightened by it. The optimists, the risk-takers, the people whose brains already leaned toward possibility over danger. This is called self-selection. And when generation after generation of self-selected optimists build a culture, raise children, write stories, create mythology, and pass values forward, the optimism doesn't just survive, it compounds. If this is making you think differently about your own brain, follow and subscribe to Sticky End. Every video we take one hidden truth about human psychology and make it impossible to unsee. Chapter 3. The Dream Machine. Psychologist Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the founders of positive psychology, spent decades studying the relationship between optimism, motivation, and achievement. What he found was that optimists don't just feel better, they perform differently. They persist longer after failure. They reframe setbacks as temporary rather than permanent. They take more risks. They start more businesses, apply for more opportunities, and recover faster when things go wrong. The American dream is not just a cultural myth. It is an accurate description of what optimism bias actually produces in human behavior. The same brain wiring that made people cross an ocean with nothing kept building long after they arrived. It built industries, it built institutions. It built a story so powerful that people are still crossing oceans to reach it today. Chapter 4. The Cost. But here is where it gets complicated, because the same bias that builds extraordinary things also blinds people to extraordinary dangers. If you genuinely believe the future will be better, not because the evidence says so, but because your brain filters toward that conclusion, you are also slower to recognize when things are going wrong. You underestimate personal risk. You assume the bad outcome will happen to someone else. Tali Sharot's research showed that even when people are given accurate statistical information about negative outcomes, told explicitly that their chances are worse than they think, the optimism bias reasserts itself within minutes. The brain doesn't just ignore bad news, it bounces back from it as if it never arrived. This is why America can simultaneously be the country that invented the most powerful medical system in the world and have millions of people who don't go to the doctor because they assume they're fine. It is why it can produce the most powerful financial institutions on Earth and repeatedly create bubble economies where millions simultaneously believe the market will only go up. Researcher Carol Dweck at Stanford University found that cultures built entirely on individual achievement narratives, "you can do anything if you just work hard enough," can actually produce more fragility, not less, because they tie personal worth entirely to outcome. When the outcome doesn't arrive, the person doesn't just lose the goal, they lose themselves. This is the American paradox in full. A brain wired for optimism, a culture that amplifies it, a dream that promises it, and a reality that for millions of people doesn't deliver it. The antidepressants are not a contradiction of the optimism, they are the cost of it. Outrow and yet, and here is the truth that makes this more than a cautionary tale. Optimism bias is also why America still attracts more people than almost any other nation on Earth. It is why Americans disproportionately start companies, disproportionately recover from disaster, and disproportionately believe, against all evidence sometimes, that tomorrow can be different from today. The brain that built America is the same brain in your chest right now, leaning forward, filtering out the bad, pulling toward the possible. The question isn't whether that bias is real. It is. The question is whether you are driving it, or it is driving you. If this made you see yourself differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Sticky End.